Hi, soul friends. It's Tannaz Hosseinpour, and welcome back to another short solo episode of the Minutes on Growth podcast. Today's conversation is one that's been unfolding in my sessions, in my friendships, and in my own reflections as well. And it's about our bodies. More specifically, the comments that are made about our bodies, how we feel about our bodies, the shame we often carry because of those comments, and the deep, often invisible wounds that they leave behind. Before we dive deeper, I want to clarify something. I'm not a nutritionist or a medical doctor. I don't offer dietary or medical advice. My expertise lies in mental health, and that's the lens through which I want to approach this topic. My focus is really to expand on our relationship with our bodies, with food, with societal narratives that impact our emotional and psychological well-being. Because, research has shown that body image concerns are a global mental health issue. So, a recent study published by Cambridge University Press highlights that dissatisfaction with one's body appearance, including shape and weight, is prevalent worldwide and it is associated with poor mental and physical health outcomes. Now, these concerns are influenced by cultural context, but they are universally linked to mental health challenges. And that's why it is so crucial to foster, open dialogues about these issues. So by understanding the psychological aspects of body image and the societal pressures that are contributing to them, we can begin to heal and support one another. Remember, it's not about fitting into a mold, but about embracing and honoring our unique selves, as cliche as that sounds. So let's begin. For many women, our bodies have been a topic of conversation since childhood. We grew up watching perhaps our mothers criticize their bodies. Our grandmothers might have done the same. And somewhere along the line, we learned that our bodies and the way we look were always up for discussion. Wow, you've lost weight, or oh my God, you've gained weight, or your arms look so big, or babes, that outfit is too tight on you. You shouldn't be wearing that with your body type. And for the longest time, these comments weren't questioned. It was normalized. It was almost expected that our bodies were available for commentary and that we should either take it as a compliment or see it as motivation. But it's 2025. Isn't it time for us to kind of change the narrative, for us to set a new normal that our bodies are not public property to be reviewed or critiqued? And sometimes even the seemingly innocent comments can hit wounds that we have carried for decades. And I've had conversations with my fiance about this too, and I like kind of explained it to him in this way of you didn't go to school and hear, bro, your hips look bigger today. It just simply isn't something that's been up for discussion for most men. And I say most and not all because, I saw firsthand how my brother was subject to these comments growing up, and I'll discuss it in a bit. But here's my point. Because many haven't had these experiences, they don't realize that, for example, when a male partner makes a comment about our body, about their partner's body, even with good intentions, it often lands in a wound that's been conditioned into us since we were girls. That's why we feel triggered. I mean, not because of necessarily what is said in that moment, but because of everything that came before it. The years of scrutiny, the beauty industry constantly telling us we're not good enough, we're never enough. The social media filters, the shifting trends. So one minute it's like this heroin chic, the next it's super curvy. And so many of us begin to feel like our worth is constantly tied to whether or not we fit whatever mold is trending at that moment. And as if our body is like a fashion statement that needs to be constantly adjusted. But it goes deeper than body image. I mean, think about it. For the longest time, I know that was the case for me, we didn't even consider our menstrual cycles when it came to fitness or nutrition. I'm only learning about this now of how I need to move my body and feed my body during different phases of my cycle. And most of the research that has been done in health and wellness, it was done on men. And they just simply applied it to women without accounting for our unique biology. I recently read a fascinating study showing that women actually need more sleep than men. But up until recently, that was never part of the conversation. It was just assumed that if this is what is good for men, then it's good for women too. Our bodies weren't factored in. We were just kind of expected to perform and operate like them. And, one thing I deeply appreciate, something I rarely saw growing up in the Middle East and actually in North America too, was my dad's policy at work. So, bless my dad, he's always been so vocal about menstruation, and he was like the second person I told when I first got my period, and he had such a positive response to it. He honored me, he celebrated me, he took me to the supermarket. It was such a lovely experience, and I think that was such a healing moment for not only me, but for all the generations that came before me in my lineage. But the policy that I want to honor, and if there's any business owners listening to this, I highly recommend implementing something similar, is that he created space for women to take the first day of their cycle off, no questions asked. It wasn't seen as a weakness. It was simply him acknowledging biology, honoring the body, and creating space for rest. And yet, for so many of the women I work with, that kind of openness around menstruation has been completely absent from their homes and their lives. They tell me they never talked about it, that when they first got their period, it was filled with shame and secrecy and embarrassment, that when their bodies began to change during puberty, developing breasts, gaining curves, they felt that they had to hide it. And that shame, it doesn't just vanish. It sits quietly in the background, influencing our relationship with our bodies. And it resurfaces again later during premenopause and menopause. And here's the thing, we don't talk about that enough either. Premenopause, especially, is something I hear so little about, even though it affects our mood, sleep, energy, hormones, weight, relationships, nervous system. We're simply not educated enough about it. We're not prepared for it. And most of the time, the men in our lives don't know about it either, which makes it even harder to ask for support when we don't even have the language for what we are experiencing. And this is why these conversations matter. This is why body literacy matters, because when we're informed, we stop feeling like we're broken. We stop fighting biology. We start working with our bodies instead of against them. So here's what I want us to begin shifting. The body was never the problem. The story we inherited about our bodies is. And as I mentioned, shame, it is a heavy story. We cannot shame ourselves into changing. We cannot judge ourselves into love, but we can begin to reclaim, to rewrite the narrative, to come home to the body, not to control it, but to honor it. And I want to share an example of this reclamation from someone very close to me that I mentioned earlier, my brother. He once weighed 220 kilos. He had his fair share of getting bullied and teased and, comments thrown at him. Doctors labeled him as obese. He was on thyroid medication, cholesterol medication. He was only 19, And every specialist told him, you need surgery. This is impossible to do naturally. You'll never make it without medical intervention. And I mean, he had tried. He had tried for years to lose weight through like yo-yo diets, signing up to different gyms, but like stopping after a few sessions. But after the last doctor appointment, where the doctor was like adamant on scheduling him in for surgery, I remember him saying something really powerful. Just give me one last chance to try and connect with my body. Such a profound statement. And try he did. He embarked on the most profound, sustainable journey I have ever seen. And I think it had a lot to do with his intention. It no longer was to like please my mom, who was worried about him. Um, it was no longer him trying to fit into a certain mold to look like someone, to look like people he saw on social media. But the way he phrased it showed me that it was genuinely to reconnect with his body, to reconnect with the parts of himself that he had shamed and suppressed over the years. He didn't starve himself. He didn't take Ozempic, even though it was available to him for free, because in Canada, under 25, within a certain income range, medication is free. And he already had the support of his specialist for it. But he said, let me try to reconnect with my body in a natural way. And he took baby steps. He really took baby steps in changing his relationship with his body. And he began treating his body, this is his own words, verbatim, like a temple. This is a guy who went from ordering Uber Eats 3 times a day, including for breakfast, to cooking. He was cooking real food like protein, veggies, rice. He started to nourish his body. He started to move his body. But, and here's the big but, not as a form of punishment, but as celebration. He kept saying, Tannaz, I want to feel strong. I want to feel alive in this body. And so over 2 years, he went from 220 to 90 kilos. His liver healed. He was taken off all the medication that he was given. But most importantly, he became someone who actually felt connected to his body, to the body that he was living in. So it's not a weight loss story. This is a story of reclaiming autonomy and agency over self, over one's own body, over one's own story. And we don't do this kind of healing in isolation. I really think we need safe spaces for this. I remember at our Mykonos retreat, one of the most beautiful transformations that we witnessed was one of our participants healing, slowly starting to heal her relationship with food. And it wasn't because she was given a meal plan or a lecture, but because in those moments she felt seen, she felt heard, she felt supported. And when you are surrounded by sisterhood and not comparison, you soften. You start to release the shame. You start to reclaim your body not as an enemy, but as an ally. And it's the same, by the way, for men too. If they're surrounded by this brotherhood, by this community, by this sense of belongingness, becomes a medium, a vessel for healing. And that's why usually when, we have in-person programs, for example, our upcoming Tuscany retreat in August, we intentionally weave in healing around our bodies, around food, our feminine rhythms. So whether it's like pizza and pasta making classes where we're like engaging with food joyfully and mindfully, or in our shared meals where we hold hands and bless our food and you know say a little prayer and eat together, we are healing the layers, the relationship with food, with body image, with community. And there's actual research, by the way, that shows that eating with loved ones improves digestion, reduces stress, and increases overall satisfaction with meals. So it's not just emotional, it's physiological. So here's my invitation to you today. You are allowed to be at peace in your body. You are allowed to move it, to love it, to feed it, to honor it without apology or explanation. You are allowed to speak up when someone crosses a boundary, and you are allowed to rewrite the narrative. And if you're in partnership, I highly recommend sharing this episode with your partner. Help them understand that it isn't about that one comment, but about everything that came before it. And together we can start creating relationships and communities where our bodies are respected, honored, not reviewed, where healing is possible, where we can learn to accept, love, honor, and most importantly, feel safe in the skin that we're in. I believe that we all deserve to feel the safety. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with a friend, to leave a quick review, and don't forget to check the show notes for the upcoming Tuscany retreat details. Until next time, please be gentle with your body. It is showing up for you, and we need to honor it to the best of our ability. Speak soon.